John Wayne Gacy was convicted of 33 murders of mostly teenage boys. He was sentenced to death for 12 of those murders, 12 proved to have been committed after Illinois had passed post-ferment death penalty, and natural life in prison for the others. The bodies of most of the victims were unearthed in the crawlspace under Gacy's middle-class home in the Chicago suburbs. Evidence showed that the defendant led a double life, engaging in charitable and political activities at the same time he was committing a series of sadistic torture murders. He enticed many young men to his home for homosexual liaison, tying or handcuffing his partners then strangling or choking them. Gacy was a successful contractor, was active in the community, and often dressed up as a clown for parties. On December 11, 1978, a 15-year-old Des High School sophomore, Robert Pius, disappeared shortly after leaving work at a pharmacy where Gacy had recently completed a remodeling job. Police put Gacy under surveillance, and when it was learned that two teenage employees of Gacy, Gregory Godzik and John Butkovich, also had recently disappeared, the police obtained a search warrant for Gacy's home. A roll of film belonging to Pius was seized in the ensuing search. A second search warrant was executed and 3 lime-covered bodies were found in the crawlspace. Gacy pointed officers to the precise locations of certain bodies in the crawlspace and stated that he had lured the victims to his home, either expressly for sex or through the promise of employment, and then strangled them. A total of 29 bodies were recovered on the property and 4 more were discovered in a nearby river. Gacy recanted his confession and did not testify at trial, where he asserted an insanity defense unsuccessfully. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. According to the book Killer Clown, by Terry Sullivan and Peter Mikan, Gacy seemed to have a regular childhood with the exception of his turbulent relationship with his father, John Wayne Gacy Sr. The authors describe the father as an unpleasant, abusive alcoholic prone to physically and verbally assaulting his children. They describe Gacy as deeply loving his father and wanting desperately to gain his approval and attention, but failing to win him over. Gacy Sr. died on Christmas Day 1965. After attending 4 high schools during his senior year and never graduating, Gacy dropped out of school and left Chicago for Las Vegas. While there, he worked part-time as a janitor for Palm Mortuary. Unhappy in Vegas, he returned to Chicago a few months later. During the early 1960s, Gacy enrolled in a business college and developed a talent for salesmanship. A born salesman, he could talk his way in and out of practically any situation. Upon graduating, he went to work as a management trainee at Nunn-Bush Shoe Co. in downtown Chicago. He excelled in his position and within weeks was transferred to Springfield, Ill. to manage a men's clothing outlet for the company, where he remained employed for nearly a year. Shortly after his promotion, Gacy married into a wealthy family and relocated with his new bride to Waterloo, Iowa, in 1966. At the request of his father-in-law, Gacy took over management of the family's chicken restaurant. Gacy quickly became a well-known and liked member of the community, according to later accounts in the Waterloo Courier. However, all was not well with Gacy. The future serial killer would be arrested for the first time in 1968. The felony charge, attempting to coerce a male employee into homosexual acts, came as a big surprise to those who thought they knew this likable father of 2 infants, especially his wife of 2 years. Gacy pled guilty to sodomy and was sentenced to 10 years in Iowa's State Men's Reformatory in Anamosa. His wife filed for divorce following the sentencing. Angered, Gacy informed her he did not want to see his children again and would henceforth consider her and the 2 kids dead. After serving 18 months, Gacy was paroled in 1971 and moved back to Chicago. He went to work as a construction contractor and then started his own construction business. That July he remarried a recently divorced woman he had met through mutual friends and, with financial assistance from his mother, moved into a house in Des Plaines, with financial help from his mother. In February 1971, Gacy again ran into trouble with the law. He was charged with the attempted rape of a young man. The charges were dropped when the victim failed to appear in court for the hearing. Gacy had a talent for business. According to the Des Plaines Journal, he was known by local merchants as a sharp businessman, who would often undercut his business rivals' contracts by hiring on a number of high school-age employees to cut his costs. His business grew. Gacy spent part of his leisure time hosting elaborate street parties for friends and neighbors, dressing as a clown, and entertaining children at local hospitals. He also immersed himself in organizations such as the J-Kiss and the local Democratic Party. As a Democratic precinct captain, he once had his picture taken with First Lady Rosalind Carter. Gacy's second wife divorced him in March of 1976. According to accounts in Harlan Mendenhall's book, Fall of the House of Gacy, Gacy's second wife felt she could no longer cope with the marriage due to her husband's unpredictable moods and bizarre obsession with homosexual magazines. The couple did not have children. On December 12, 1978, the police again focused their attention on John Wayne Gacy. Robert Pius, a teenage stock boy at a local Des Plaines pharmacy, had come up missing. Gacy was the last person seen with the boy prior to his disappearance. When investigators ran a background check on Gacy, they were surprised to discover that he had previously served time for committing sodomy on a teenage boy. With this incriminating information, investigators were able to obtain a warrant to search Gacy's house. During the execution of the warrant, investigators entered a crawl space located beneath the home. A rancid odor was quickly noticed. The smell was believed to be faulty sewage lines and was quickly dismissed. Without any noticeable incriminating evidence, investigators returned to headquarters to run tests on the evidence they seized. During a review of the items confiscated from Gacy's house, investigators soon realized that they had unknowingly seized a piece of critical evidence. One of the rings found at Gacy's house belonged to another teenager who had disappeared a year earlier. With this new information, investigators began to realize the possible enormity of the case that was unfolding before them. Following the discovery of the new information, it was not long before investigators were able to obtain a second search warrant for Gacy's home. On December 22, 1978, Gacy, realizing that his dark secrets were about to be exposed, confessed to police, telling them that he had murdered approximately 33 young men over the past 7 years. He also drew them a detailed map to the locations of 28 shallow graves under his house and garage. Further, he admitted to dumping 5 others into the Des Plaines River. Gacy told detectives, "There are 4 Johns." He later explained that there was John the contractor, John the clown, and John the politician. The 4th person went by the name of Jack Hanley. Jack was the killer and did all the evil things. Gacy's murder trial began February 6, 1980, in the Cook County Criminal Courts building in Chicago. During the 5-week trial, the prosecution and the defense called more than 100 witnesses to testify. The defense strategy was to establish that Gacy was insane and out of control at the time of the killings. To bolster this claim, the defense put on the stand psychiatrists who had interviewed Gacy prior to trial. After the closing arguments, the jury deliberated for only 2 hours before finding Gacy guilty of murdering 33 people. On March 13, 1980, Gacy was sentenced to die. Gacy was transported to Menard Correctional Center in Illinois. He would remain there for just over 14 years until he was transported to the Statesville Penitentiary near Joliet for execution. On May 9, 1994, Gacy sat down for his last meal: fried chicken, French fries, Coke and strawberry shortcake. Prison officials later described his demeanor as chatty, talking up a storm. In a phone interview shortly before his execution, he told a Night Tribune reporter, "There's been 11 hardback books on me, 31 paperbacks, 2 screenplays, 1 movie, 1 off-Broadway play, 5 songs, and over 5,000 articles. What can I say about it?" But of course, he quickly protested, "I have no ego for any of this garbage." Just after midnight on May 10, 1994, Gacy was executed by lethal injection. For his last words, Gacy snarled, "Kiss my A."